Thank you folks for coming. My name is Philip Abirashid. I'm the GOP chairman in Windham. This is the beginning of a series of meetings with our Republican candidates for U.S. Senate. On the behalf of Windham Republican Town Committee, I would like to thank everyone who made it today to meet and greet and to know retired Army General Don Bolduc, our GOP candidate for U.S. Senate seat in 2020. There's no doubt Congress and Senate are broken. There's a policy-making crisis and deadlock in Washington, D.C. There's no, these so-called seasonal politicians are the ones who got us where we are today. They are wasting voters' time. Obviously, they're working for themselves, not for New Hampshire. We need new energy, we need new faces, period. We have to change the status quo. We have a special guest today, Army General Don Bolduc. Thank you for coming to Windham.
My honor.
Thank you. He was born and brought up in New Hampshire, fully made in New Hampshire.
That's right. All 5'7" of it.
He retired as one of the most highly decorated soldiers ever. Having served 8 combat tours and having put his life on the line for his country numerous times. Allow me to introduce to you General Don Bolduc.
So I hope that nobody is afraid of Victor. He will roam around. Feel free to pet him. It's okay in this environment. He's going to keep an eye on my wife Sharon in the back, who I'd like to introduce right now. Sharon, please stand up. Sharon grew up in Derry and Wyndham, Pickerington High School, Pickerington Academy, excuse me. I played football.
Does she outrank you?
Yes.
Just tell them the truth, that's
Absolutely.
a good start.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And so I'm glad to have her here. We've been together for over 30 years. We have 3 sons and 3 grandchildren. And it's just, overwhelming to have such a wonderful life and a wonderful family and just be back in New Hampshire again. So it's pretty awesome. Also, J.P. Marzullo, who's a member of my team. And Mr. Fred Doucette, also a member of my team. And I don't think I've missed anybody yet. Of course, a huge fan of mine and a wonderful person. And someone, oh the hell, I'm just going to say it. She's on my team, Sandy. Oh. God bless you. I'm going to get punched for that, but it's okay. I can take a punch. Anyways, it's all good. So, it's an honor for me to be here, right? And what I want to say first, before I get into what I'm going to talk about here, and it'll probably take about 10-15 minutes to get through this. And I do use this because I find it to be very effective in engaging the eyes and the ears. More sensory perception equals more understanding of what I'm talking about, okay? Because I think it's hugely important. But what I want to talk about right now is the importance of the Republican Party coming together in this state and working together in a way that we have not done in a long time. Now, I have only been here for 22 months. I retired in October of 17. I've been a resident of this state my entire life, but I have sat in a lot of meetings and I have been educated by a lot of people about the Republican Party and how it's fallen apart, and it doesn't take much to look at the Republican Party and see that it's hurting when the Executive Council, right, the House and the Senate, and our two congressional representatives and the House of Representatives and our two senators are Democrats. And we only have one Republican senator in all of New England, and that's Senator Collins from Maine, right? We have to change that. And the only way to change that is by pulling together and not pulling each other apart like warm bread, right? And understanding that the Republican Party is much bigger than a conservative sliver over here, right? It's much bigger than that. It is big, right? And I want to be part of bringing and supporting Governor Sununu in bringing the Republican Party together so that we can affect change. And as was said, put new people in Washington, D.C. that are going to serve you and not themselves. And that's hugely, hugely important, right? And so that is what I wanted to say right up front, because that's hugely important for us to understand. And you need to understand that I will not do any personal attacks against any Republican candidate that runs for the primary. A couple of things that I want to get across to you. I've been criticized, right? I've been criticized, one, for speaking like a general, right? Guilty as charged. It's hard for me not to speak like an officer, like a commander. I've been commanding troops since I was a young captain. And so I approach life like a commander, just like Donald Trump approaches life like a businessman, right? And just like anyone in here would have a conversation with somebody if they were a doctor or a lawyer or anyone else. So yes, guilty as charged. I speak like a general, right? I'm animated, I'm full of energy, I'm all over the place, and that's good, right? That's me. I'm rough cut, right? I speak straightforward, right? There's no baloney, right? No baloney, right? I was searching for a word.
You could use malarkey too.
Yeah, malarkey. There's none of that, right? It is straightforward, rough cut, tell it like it is, honest dialogue, and that's just the way I am. That's how I learned to be in the state of New Hampshire. That's how I was taught by my parents, that I was taught by the nuns in the Catholic school, as well as trying to block being hit by a ruler, right? That's how I got my martial arts skills. Anyway, so all these things combined is me, right? I am not a legislator, I am not a politician, right? But I submit to you that that's okay. I can go down to Washington, D.C., and I can represent you very effectively in the Senate. And why can I do that? Because I understand leadership. Because I understand how to bring people together, right? The military is a microcosm of society, right? What you have in society, you have in the military, period. Right? A lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't talk about it, but it's a mirror image, right? So, you just can't order people around and get the job done, right? You can't do it. It doesn't work. And I've been accused of, well, he's going to go to Washington, D.C., and he's just going to think he can order everyone around like Napoleon. Well, I know I can't do that, right? Because it doesn't work. I couldn't do it in my unit, right? If I walked into my unit as a commander every single day and yelled out commands all the time, I would not get anything done, right? Being a commander is a part-time job, right? Well, it's not a part-time, it's a full-time job, but it's only for 2 years. You're only there for 2 years. You have a term limit, right? You have a command limit, you're out, right? So you got to do right by that unit for 2 years because the rest of the people stay, right? So you have to be a positive influence there. You have to bring people together that are from all over the United States and the world, by the way. Different religions, different backgrounds, right? Different ethnicities. Everything is right there in front of you, right? And so in order to be effective in that environment, you have to understand how to bring people together. And that's what's missing. And I'll get into it here in a second, right? But I wanted to clarify that for you. Because I don't intend on going to Washington, D.C. and trying to order everybody around. I can't do it. I won't be effective, right? What I want to go to Washington, D.C. to do, and what I need your help doing it, is to represent you in the same way I represented the men and women in my organizations, right? It wasn't about me. It was about them. And it will be about you in a way that you've never seen before, right? Because that's not what politicians do. It's politics for power, not politics for service. And that's the business I'm in, service. And I've always been in that business, and I've always put people first. And we eat last in the military as an officer. You don't eat first, you eat last. And there were times out in the field when I'd go through the chow hall and there wasn't any food left. Or there was just a little bit left. Right? And you know when you're effective as a leader is when your guys see that you didn't get any chow and they come over and they give you chow off their plate. Right? You don't ask them for their chow. I didn't take it when they offered it, but bottom line is, that's the difference. Leadership. Leadership with an understanding and a focus on the people that you're there to represent. And that's not what we got. So, live for your guy. My little flag. I whipped it right over here. I am on a job interview. And I need to gain your trust. And I'm going to do it through moral courage. Right? I am going to do it through moral courage. Because I'm going to stand up for what is right. For what is right. Not what's easy. I'm not a transactional leader. I'm a transformational leader. A transactional leader is someone who does quid pro quo. What's in it for me? What's in it for you? How can we help each other out? How am I going to make my life better? How am I going to make your life better? And that's all they're in it for. They take care of themselves. A transformational leader believes in the organization, believes in the people, puts the people first, puts themselves last. Right? Washington, Lincoln, Eisenhower, Reagan, examples of transformational leaders that believed in unity above all. Unity of our country at the beginning, unity of our country during the Civil War, unity of our country after World War II, and unity of our country after Vietnam and after all those things that tore our country apart for a variety of reasons. Right? And that's what Reagan stood for. And that's what we need to stand for now. And we've been tearing ourselves apart ever since. And we've got to stop that. And you stop it by voting for different people. Right? In my mind, in this country, there's only 1%. Right? We talk about the 1%ers, and those are the rich people up here, right? And then there's everybody else rowing hard, right? And they're making all the decisions, and they get voted into all the places, and they do all the jobs, right? And then we're still end up rowing. We're rowing hard, right? My 1% are the 1% of the people that serve our country, right? The 1%, less than 1% of our armed forces comes from our society. They're the true 1%ers for me, right? And the other 99%, they're there to help. They're there to come together, make it stronger, right? And help our families, and help our service members, and help us be stronger as a country, right? As a senator, I'm going to go down there, and I am going to be the representative of New Hampshire, right? Not for me, but for you. And I promise you, because I'm going to gain your trust, and that takes time, and I have moral courage because I've demonstrated it 33 years in the military by sticking up for my men and women in my charge and doing the right thing by them. Okay? So, We have a problem in Washington, D.C., and it's ineffective leadership. We are gridlocked. We are ideologically opposed. They're up against the ropes. No fighter ever wins a fight with their back to the ropes. Nobody. You got to come to the middle of the ring, and you got to talk, and you got to work through issues. Disagreements and differences of opinion now are ruling us, and we're starting to compromise our principles, and that has to stop. It has to stop now. And it's got to stop with people that are willing to go down there and say, enough is enough. Enough is enough. We got to come together, right? Ineffective leadership, gridlock, pointing of fingers, blaming each other. Just look at the last 2 days of Democratic debates. My goodness gracious, right? Unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. It's a terrible example of coming together. They can't even agree with each other, right? I get it, but that's a process of putting yourself first and the country second. That's why I will not attack any Republican that runs for the U.S. Senate against Jeanne Shaheen. I will embrace them. I will be respectful. But it's up to you to vote on the person that you think can beat Jeanne Shaheen. And I think that's me. And I'm telling you why, right? We have politicians working for themselves that go to Washington, D.C., and over time end up becoming what? Millionaires. Millionaires.
Multi.
Wealthy. That's
Multi-billionaires.
multi-millionaires. There you go. That's wrong. The economy, our national security and defense, and health and welfare of our country is not the priority. Not the priority, right? And it needs to be the priority. I support President Trump in his economic policies, his national defense and security policies, and his policies in trying to make the health and welfare of Americans better, right? I support all those. But I want to be honest with you. I'm not a rubber stamp. I represent New Hampshire, and anything that comes out of Washington, D.C. that is not right for New Hampshire, I will sound off. And I will make my point. Case in point, the recent budget that was passed was a bad budget for the president. They sent him garbage, and it was bad for America. Yet, they did it because it was politically feasible. It was politically an easy thing to do. It's going to get them through the election at your expense. The spending in that is ridiculous. We have a huge spending problem. We got to stop it. We got to start running our country like we respect the money that you give us. And we're not doing that. We are not doing that. We're spending, throwing money and people at things and not getting a return on our investment. And that's what we need to do. A better return on our investment. Your money. It's your money that's being thrown around and wasted. So I would have said, sir, I do not vote for this. Sir, I recommend that we delay our recess or we cancel our recess and we roll up our sleeves and we come up with a better budget for America and for the president. And we start doing our job because we're certainly paid enough for it and have enough benefits, right? I will also not vote for another benefit for Congress, ever. I will vote nay, no, very high. I also am in favor of term limits because that's how we continuously get new people in there, new ideas, new people, and not the same old people doing the same old things for themselves. And that's what's happening. Term limits are necessary. 12 years is enough. I believe in term limits for Jeanne Shaheen. Right? I do. I will not build a political machine. I will do these kind of meetings regularly when I am your senator. if I get that honor bestowed upon me by you. We will do house parties during my term, not just because we do them when we get elected and want to pull money out of your pocket for elections. That's not how you govern properly. That's not how you report back to the people who you're responsible for. You have to consistently talk, and you have to get their ideas, and you have to be able to change your mind. And you can't be so hard-headed about stuff that you can't see the other side of the argument. But term limits is key to this, because the more a politician stays in their job, it's a business of diminishing returns for you. And we see it. We've got to stop that. And I believe in stopping that. Community-based approach. You are the answer to our problems, not Washington, D.C. We need legislation that deregulates. We need programs that come down to the community. We need to put the communities in charge. And the only thing Washington, D.C. needs to be concerned about is the return on investment that we get. Are we getting the return on investment for the opioid crisis, for violence in our communities, for mental health in our communities, for suicide in our communities, right? All these things that are a huge problem right now that are hurting our communities because Washington, D.C. wants to control it from above. And it doesn't work that way. We have to push it down. And then all we have to do is our job. And that is ensure that the money that we're given has a return on investment. I had a $250 million budget as Special Operations Commander in Africa. Right? $250 million. Right? If I spent one penny of that wrong, I'd lose my job. I'd be sent packing. Right? That's how serious I am about our money. Your money. There's no room for error. In Congress, $250 million is a rounding error for a mistake they make. It was my entire budget to run operations in 28 countries in Africa. Okay? Can't waste money any longer. We can't do it. We cannot do it. All right. Servant leadership, personal responsibility, and respect. That's what you get out of me. Servant leadership. I serve you. I will be held accountable. I will make myself accountable. I will admit my mistakes. I have a track record for doing it. Right? I do. I will admit my mistakes, and I won't make the same mistake twice, and I will move forward to correct it. And I won't focus on re-election because that's your business. You think I did a good job, you'll re-elect me for a second term, and then I leave at 12. Somebody else comes in. It's a great system in the military where we replace commanders at 2 years. I think we should stay 4, but that's only because I love command, and I didn't want to leave at 2. But anyways, we do that in order to get new ideas and new people in there so we can move the unit forward, right? Because not everybody is the same. Not everybody thinks the same. But if we get the same old people doing the same old things, and we vote the same old people doing the same old things, and we get the same result, and the result is bad, then that's kind of insane, right? It's the definition of insanity, and that's what's going on right now. Gotta stop it. Gotta stop it. All right? I fought for our country. I will fight for New Hampshire. Nobody can argue with that line. It's proven. Right? I got money in the bank there. Right? I will fight for you. I will. I promise. Senator Shaheen, let's frame her for a second. Poor constituent support. She's absent from New Hampshire. She lives in New York, Maine, although she owns property in Madbury. But she lives in New York, Maine, and Washington, D.C. She comes through the state like a butterfly, and she stops in a location. She comes in, she says something, and then she leaves. Goes to York, Maine. Okay? That's what she does. She's not accountable to you. I know she's not accountable to me because I've worked for the last 22 months to support veterans, not only in the state of New Hampshire, but in New England and across this country. And the people that I've been involved with saved lives. And I wrote letters to our 2 Congress women at the time, I realize Congressman Pappas is there now. He wasn't there. It's two women, and then Senator Hassan and Senator Shaheen. I heard from one out of the four, Senator Hassan. One out of the four. And I saw Senator Hassan a lot at veteran events. She's really supportive of veterans, right? She wants to help veterans. And so what I wrote about was a green alert system. And that's a system that will alert us when a veteran goes missing. We have over 10,000 veterans every year that go missing. And they're usually found dead. And we have hundreds of veterans every month that get buried in unknown graves. No markers. Nobody knows who they are. Right? That's a terrible thing. Right? So we want to do something about it. So we put together this green alert system, and I offered it up to the four. Senator Hassan said, I want to support you on that. So her chief of staff and her team worked with me, got the legislation written, got Joni Ernst, a Republican from Iowa, to co-sponsor it, right? Because there were no other Republicans around New Hampshire to help her, right? So she got Joni Ernst, and she introduced the bill. It's in subcommittee right now. Jean Shaheen's excuse was, well, somebody in my office mishandled the paperwork, and that's why I didn't get back to you. She blamed her subordinate. Something leaders never do, even if it's the subordinate's fault. You take that responsibility on, you own that mistake, and you make it better. Right? Somebody wrote me a letter and said, geez, I didn't hear from you. You told me I was going to hear from you. I gave you my card, right? And I donated to your campaign, but I didn't hear from you. And I said, whoa. And I immediately contacted them, and I apologized for that. And I wrote a letter back, and I said, I'm sorry, and I admitted my mistake. Those letters and that money didn't come directly to me, and that's okay. But it's my organization. It's my campaign. I'm the lead dog. I have a great team, and it's their campaign as much as mine, but I'm the one responsible for what goes wrong. And I tell my team, you get credit for everything that goes right, I take credit for everything that goes wrong, and you're in a win-win situation. So just go out there and make it happen. Right? That's what we need. That's the kind of leadership we need. Not people that blame everybody for everything. Ineffective leadership. She's been on the Senate Armed Services Committee now for 12 years. We have the worst policy for Afghanistan, the worst policy for Syria, the worst policy for Iraq, the worst policy for Africa. She's been on the Foreign Relations Committee. We have the worst foreign relations that we had in God knows how long. She's been in the Appropriations Committee, and the time that she's been a senator, our deficit has gone from 10 trillion to 22 trillion. Okay? She's been in the Small Business Committee.
Never met her.
Never met her. Never met her. Right? That's wrong. It's wrong. Those are the committees she sit on. Now, she's signed up for a lot of bills. She sent a lot of money out, and she'll tell you that. Oh, 63 million for this, 57 million for that, blah, 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 blah. What's the return on the investment? You can't just throw money at a problem. I don't throw money at a problem at my house. My wife is commander-in-chief in our house. Right? We have a budget. We can only spend so much, right? If we want to go on vacation, we have to save. You know, if we have a future project, then we have to plan it out and save it, right? Save for it. You have to do the same thing. We got to start doing the same thing in Congress. But no, there's no accountability, there's no transparency, right? There's no future plan for our budget. We just run the country, and if we don't like what's going on, we do the worst thing that you can do and shut it down. And now, that is not the ultimate malfeasance, right? Shutting down the country, closing the government because you can't do your job. Wow. Wow. You know, on Friday, when something hits the fan in the military, in my area of responsibility, I couldn't go, well, you know what? It's Friday afternoon. Why don't we pick this up on Monday? We can't do that. We have a responsibility of servant leadership. Broken promises to our veteran. Hasn't kept one promise to our veteran. Right? One promise to our veterans. Hasn't. Right? We're supposed to have a full-service medical center by now. We don't have it. I'll tell you, I get my medical care at the Veterans Hospital. Right? And when I go to Congress to be in the Senate, to be your senator, I'm still going to get my medical care at the VA. It's that important to me. And I tell you what, as your senator, when I start showing up for care at VA medical centers, they're going to start changing their tune inside there, don't you think? Don't you think? That's top-down leadership. That's top-down emphasis. That's top-down fixing the problems without getting in anybody's way. You know what I'm saying? It really is, you know? So, anyways, let's see. Let's see here. Let's talk about one of the most dangerous things that I'm seeing. We have a law of the land called Roe versus Wade, right? And whether we agree with that or not, it's the law of the land. But the problem we have right now is Senator Shaheen and many people in her belief system believe in infanticide, believe in partial birth abortions, don't support the Born Alive legislation. So that means a baby is born alive as a result of an abortion and the doctors can't keep it alive. They believe in abortion up to the last minute. The last minute of childbirth. And then they don't even support keeping it alive after it's born. That's horrendous. Only China and North Korea do that.
Wow.
Not the United States. And that has to change. Because that is wrong. It's wrong.
Totally agree.
She supports the new Green Deal, which will increase from $53 to $91 trillion at an expense of $600K to your tax dollars in New Hampshire. That's wrong. We don't need a Green New Deal, right? We don't need that. We can invest in our own power and our own energy here in a smart way in New Hampshire, do what the governor wants to do, support the governor 100%. Of course we can. She supports universal health care. I tell you what, I came out of the military. I know what universal health care looks like. You don't want it. You don't want it. Right? I'm in it now, the VA system. And you don't want it. The only people that benefit from a socialist system are the people at the top. Everybody else is rationed and prioritized. And ma'am, in that healthcare system, you're at the bottom. Isn't that terrible? Because you should be at the top because you are precious. That won't happen. And we can do better. And I know we can do better. And that's what we need to do. Now, last thing, and then I'll shut up. Little to no progress on addiction, mental health, healthcare, and violence inside our communities. I just left a meeting with the New Hampshire Police Association and the New Hampshire Trooper Association. Now, I was a police officer in the early 80s in Laconia, New Hampshire, right? So I love law enforcement, right? And I support law enforcement. But law enforcement is in a pickle, right? Because Republicans say, we love you, law enforcement, but then they don't want to pay them, right? And then they don't want to take care of their families with the health benefits that they need, right? The Democrats really don't like law enforcement, but they're willing to pay them because they want their votes. That's just wrong. I told them, I love you, I support you, I'm going to fight hard for the benefits to change. Do you know that our New Hampshire police officers have to pay a $5,000 deductible on their insurance, health insurance? $5,000.
Yeah.
Yes. It's awful. And they don't get paid. And then they get abused because there's no national narrative saying respect our law enforcement officers, respect our first responders. There is nothing coming out of Washington. The president loves them, but nobody in the Senate is saying anything. I'm going to be a voice for them because I believe in them and I believe that they need to be supported. And they need to be paid for what they do, and they need to get the health care for what they do. One of the things that I think is a travesty, and our legislature is going to fix it, thanks to the governor and our legislators getting together, it's pre-existing condition of post-traumatic stress. They can't get any help because they can't prove that they didn't have it. Now, I walk in and they say, hey, Don, I'm a law enforcement officer. And they say, hey, well, actually, it'd probably be like this. And I'm sitting in front of them. So, did you serve in the military? Yes. Did you serve in combat? Yes. How long did you serve in combat? Well, I did 10 tours. Total of 81 months in combat. Oh, well, you had PTS from combat, not from the police job. We can't help you. That's wrong. It's wrong. Because I will tell you, and what the police officer explained to me today was, we don't have post-traumatic stress, we have present traumatic stress. Present traumatic stress. Their jobs are hard. Do you know that when people ask them what they do, they don't even tell them what they do because they're afraid that they might get a reaction, a bad reaction, right? So, anyway, I probably talked too long. However, I hope I didn't waste anyone's time. I hope you have an understanding of who Don Bolduc is. And I'm somebody that wants to work for you, and I will work for you. I have the energy, I have the youth, I have the experience. Now, maybe not legislative experience, but who needs that? Everybody else that has legislative experience isn't getting the job done, so what the hell? You might as well take a chance on someone who doesn't. Donald Trump didn't have it. People voted for him. People accuse me, the very same people that accuse me of not having legislative experience, support and voted for Donald Trump, who didn't have legislative experience, right? But he tells it like it is. He wants to help America. He wants to make us strong. I want to do the same thing, and I want to do it for you. You. I love this country. I love this state. I will never betray you. I will never embarrass you. And if I make a mistake, I'll admit it, and I'll work harder to get it right. God bless you all, and thank you for your time.
So we're going to have a Q&A session.
Sure.
And please just be respectful.
I didn't get a chance to shake your hand.
You still can't be.
Come on in. Come on in.
Please come in. Yes. So we're going to have a Q&A. Please be respectful. The general said he's not going to attack any of the current running Republican GOP candidates. So just be respectful to that point. And we'll run Q&A. JP,
Sure.
you want to come in? Help me with that? Thank you.
Yeah. Questions? Yeah, sir.
So, I like what you said about term limits.
Yes, sir.
Would that be something that you could pursue when you get into the subject?
It's on my agenda list. And I've already signed a certificate down in Washington, D.C. when I was down there, and I am committed to it. And I will work with anyone that already agrees with it, which there are a number of people down there that agree with it, and we will bring more people under the tent to make it a reality. It has to happen. We're in a different time, in a different place, where we need to leverage the talent, a greater talent pool than we're leveraging right now.
Thank you for that.
You're very, very welcome, sir. Very welcome.
I disagree with you on one thing.
Absolutely, sir. This guy, look at him. Is he in good shape or what? My God.
Another military man, obviously.
No,
No?
military family. You said you fight in the center of the ring. You don't always fight in the center of the ring. Ali proved that with Foreman. You're gonna get your butt kicked. Get him on the rope.
Ali was an exception.
I'm telling you right now. Trump is rope-a-doping them.
Yeah.
He's letting them. He knew when he got elected They were
Right.
gonna come after. You couldn't fight him. Bring him into the ropes, bring him
Right.
into the ropes.
Yeah.
Elijah,
Yeah.
bring him in,
Yeah.
bring him in, bring him in. Oh, and I'm telling you, once he got rid of Sessions, and he got this guy Barr, is a bulldog.
Yeah.
Barr's a bulldog.
Yeah.
He's gonna, you can see it coming. You watch the attacks on him will start to lower just a
Right.
little bit.
Mhm.
Not those screwballs on the stage.
Right.
But you should know this better, you do know this better, like, every battle's different.
Yes.
If you're going in with a bigger guy with longer arms, you go in close.
That's
If
right.
you're with a short guy, you pump him up.
Right.
But that's what I think that's what Trump is doing now. He's taking his first turn and letting them all come at him, and I'll give you a case in point, Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
Elijah, Baltimore, it's disgusting. I can't believe this, that in this country, it drives me crazy. They go overseas, they spend billions of dollars,
Mhm.
and these people, in every one of those cities, has been run by a Democrat for the last 50 years,
Mhm.
saying we're gonna fix these things. We need someone like you to come out and do just like Trump. Don't take their BS.
Right.
You were afraid to say bullshit. Trump did. Remember Trump?
I'm not Donald Trump. I cannot get away with the same things he
But
gets.
what I'm saying is I look at you, I see Trump, you're a fighter.
Mhm.
You're not a yes man. God, like you said, my old man always told me, you know you got a good commanding officer. When he was in when he landed on the chopper, come out and said, and somebody said, you wanna know what's going on? He said, yeah, get me all the NCOs in here right now.
That's
You wanna
right.
talk to the lieutenants?
Right.
Get the NCOs, the grunts, get them in here, and I'll get the
That's
truth
right.
from them.
Exactly.
But
You have given me a great example. I'm gonna change my little narrative and my vignette to encompass the whole ring. You know, the rope-a-dope when I need it, the middle of the ring when I
There you
need it,
go.
coming in close, coming in low. You got it. Thank you very much. See, I told you I make mistakes, and I can get my mind changed.
See, honey, he makes mistakes.
So thank you. Yes, ma'am.
You touched on something a little earlier with Roe v. Wade, and you know the Republicans are like herding cats. We all have
Mhm.
different opinions about things.
Yes, we do.
It's a two-part question. One part is, do you support the right of women to choose?
Yes.
And the second part is, Roe v. Wade, do you think it was a bad decision?
Do I think it was a bad decision?
The law is the law of the
The
land.
law is the law of
per
the
se.
land. I would rather live in a society where we didn't do abortions.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate that.
But that's not the reality of it, is it?
It
So,
will be when women stand up for babies and their husbands help
Good.
out. But thank
well,
you
that's
for
what we
asking
need.
questions.
I think women do need to hear that it's their choice, that they do have some choices. Because nobody should be ruling over women's bodies, not men's or anything, you know, it's just that, no, we don't want abortions, but people do choose that for some reason. They're the ones that have to look in the mirror. And it's not, I think they should keep the legislature rules out of the bedroom, whatever, you know? And that would save a lot of things, the LGBT, you know, all of those, that wouldn't be such an
Right.
issue if they kind of avoided bedroom topics.
right.
You know, and I think if you come out totally, you know, there's gotta be some give and take, and
Right.
some people are afraid Roe v. Wade will be removed.
Mhm.
And that would be fearful, and and particularly after Alabama and Mississippi both came out.
Right. Very extreme,
And
right?
very extreme, and I think that's what they're picturing Trump doing this, and
Right.
and the Republicans.
Roe v. Wade is the law of the land. I gotta be honest with you,
Yeah.
with all due respect. I am not going to Washington DC to go on a campaign to overturn Roe v. Wade. That's gotta be done in our court system, and it's gotta be done that way, right, if it happens,
Right.
right? I'm going down there for other reasons that are hugely important to our economy, our national security, our defense, and the health and welfare of Americans. I fully support health care for women, I fully support health. I don't support Planned Parenthood facilities, government money, the way it's been running, right? I do support the governor's health centers. He's got 51 health centers, 10 health centers and 51 sites that take care of women's health issues. And I think that's hugely important.
They
It
need
gives
to
them
know that,
options.
too. They've gotta be
And they need to know
separated
that,
from
right?
the Planned
Separated.
Parenthood.
You're right. Absolutely. But thank you.
We got
Thank you
another
very
question
much.
over
Yes.
here.
Yes, sir. Does this guy look like Gary Sinise or what? Who knows the actor Gary Sinise? Huh? Look at him. It's unbelievable. He's already looked him up because I said it earlier, right?
No, I'm trying to remember, I pulled up a quote. In regards to the Second Amendment,
Yes.
the website says through the 10th Amendment, individual states have the right to adopt regulations that are deemed appropriate by individual legislators. Does that mean that you support common sense at the state level, common sense gun regulation bans, things like that? Where do you stand on
I
the state's
support
right?
the Second Amendment wholeheartedly as written, but I support the 10th Amendment in getting at this issue here, which is violence in our communities. Whether it's a gun, a knife, a club, a bat. For the states and the local governments to pass the necessary legislation that they need to hold the people accountable that are committing that violence, right? Whether it's a gun, or whether it's a knife, or whether it's a bat, a club, fist, whatever it is. That's what I mean by that statement. I support and I trust our governors, our state legislators, our local government to do the right thing and stay true to the Second Amendment, but do common sense things to protect our communities. Our high schools, our middle schools, our elementary schools, our hospitals, our restaurants from violence. And that's where we need to focus ourselves. I spent 33 years in the military, right? And not once did I ever see a weapon act irresponsible.
The
Yes, sir.
state representative here has a question.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, to you, sir. A two-part question. Easy one first. What's the story of the dog?
So, the story of the dog. Just before I retired, I got a call from Guardian Angels Medical Service Dogs from Lewiston, Florida. And they said, hey, we've been following you. We've been following your post-traumatic stress, TBI, sleep disorder, pain management. You don't know it, but I have 2 prosthetic hips and 3 prosthetic discs in my neck from bomb blasts and a helicopter crash, right? Doesn't look like it. I can jump, do all kinds of things. It's great. Our technology is great, and they fixed me, right? But I still had other issues with post-traumatic stress injury and traumatic brain injury and stuff like that, sleep disorder. So they contacted me and they said, hey, listen, we think you'd be a great candidate for a service dog. Would you consider it? And I said yes. Filled out all their paperwork, sent it off to them. They contacted me. It was about a 2-year process to get Victor. Victor is a federally trained, federally registered service dog, right? And he was trained to do a lot of things for me, but one of the things that he does for me that I share in public is I have a very severe form of sleep apnea where I stop breathing at night, right? And although I have a CPAP machine, I'm not in love with it, and I take it off. That means that my wife has spent a lot of her nights not sleeping well, afraid that I would not start breathing again when I stopped breathing. And she has woken me up plenty of nights, right? And so Victor was trained to do one of many things, but that's one of them. And he routinely wakes me up at night, but either before I stop breathing because he can sense it, or when I stop breathing, he wakes me up, right? And it's great. He saves my life quite a bit, right? And like I said, he was 18 months old when I got him. He went through 18 months of training before I got him. And that's what Victor does for me. He is by law authorized to go with me everywhere I go. Now I'll tell you what a difference it made in my wife's life. She now can sleep. And it's wonderful because she's earned it after raising 3 boys. Well, 4 boys if you count me. And I know that she is getting good sleep because for 30 years I never, ever, ever heard my wife snore, but she snores loud. And it's good. It's a good sound. I have it taped on my phone, so when I travel without her, I turn it on and I feel like I'm at home. Yes, ma'am.
I got the second.
Oh, I'm sorry, second part. Yes, sir.
That was the easy part.
Yeah.
I agree with you, that there aren't that many, senators that probably let down comments that I would, like to go out to dinner with. But there are some good ones down there.
There are.
So, which one would you pick out as one you would like to emulate as when you go down there in Washington DC?
Well, you know, I haven't met many of them, right? And I don't know many of them
So you see
personally.
their actions and everything else
Right.
and how they operate.
So the guy that I met, United States Marine Corps veteran from Indiana, Senator Todd Young. Senator Todd Young doesn't know me from Adam. When I was down in Washington, D.C., meeting with Senator McConnell and Senator Cruz and meeting with the, National Republican Senate Committee and the Senate Conservative Fund and, all those folks there, they invited me down to meet with them. I went down there and Senator Todd Young, freshman senator, sat down with me and walked me through the numbers on what he did to get elected to Senate, and more importantly, how to fundraise. Because I don't have any money. I can't write myself a check. I'm not a millionaire. I can't fund my own campaign. And although they say, oh, you have a platinum resume, platinum donor, oh, it's platinum. But that doesn't mean anything unless you can raise money. Well, how the heck am I going to do that? I don't know any rich people, right? But you have to call people and you have to ask them for money, and that's a hard thing to do. So he sat with me for a good amount of time and talked to me, and I looked him up and I read about him, and he's a Marine, not a former Marine, because he's never former, right? But he served in the Marine Corps, and I like to be like him. He cares about the people of Indiana. He cares about America. And he spent time with Dawn Bolduc. Who the hell am I? I was nobody to him. He didn't have to take time out of his day, but he did it. I'd like to be like him.
You're an equal. Marine Corps, best people out there.
I can't argue with that.
We're gonna take a couple more questions, so. back
Yes,
there.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
There's some very liberal pockets in the state,
Mhm.
and I was wondering how you were going to go about reaching out to that millennial type, what your campaign has in store for reaching out to them.
Well, I got to tell you, I have had pretty good success relating to millennials. One of the reasons why I wanted to teach at the university level, right? And at Southern New Hampshire University, I got the opportunity to do that. And I had a classroom full of our millennials. And I developed relationships with them, professional relationships, professor and student. But more importantly, I listened to them, and I asked them questions, and I care, right? I don't care if you're a liberal, conservative, a moderate. I don't care who you are. If somebody cares, they're going to listen to you, and you're going to win them over. I've had, and I'm going to say this, and I'm being taped, I've had a tracker since about March from the Democratic Party, tracking me, filming me, right? It was great. I'm not going to say his name.
It's not me.
But,
That's exactly what they would say.
but he's a millennial, right? And I embraced him. I let him take me anytime he wanted to. He came to my leadership talks. He came to my veteran talks. He came to, all the, he's been in all these stuff. He's not here, but probably couldn't get through the door. But he, I invited him in and I befriended him, right? And I gave him water in the parade because I ran the whole parade, in Merrimack. I ran that whole parade, right? And I'm shaking hands on both sides of the street. And I got a shirt and a tie on, and he's running and filming me talking to people. And I look back at him, and he's sweating. And I said, here, have some water, have some water. He goes, oh, no. I go, yes, have some water. 33 years in the military, I've never had a heat casualty, and I'm not starting now. Right? And so I have befriended this guy, right? And so what does he say at my announcement to my daughter-in-law? He goes, I really hate this job because I really like your father-in-law. He's a good guy, right? And you just treat people with respect.
I mean, like Portsmouth, like the social media, the college areas and the state, things like that, just,
Yeah.
it's gotta dig in.
You got to dig in. I am going to go to colleges. I'm going to do things that Republicans don't normally do and go to college. I feel comfortable in a college. Heck, I just got hired by New England College to be a full-time professor there. So I'm going to be doing that, right? And I'm honored to do that. I have to work. I can't not work. My retirement check doesn't cover our monthly expenses, does it, dear? So I need another job, right? So I have to work another job while I'm campaigning. I'm not independently wealthy. I'm like you, right? I'm like you. And I talked to this young lady here about affordable education, right? The only way we're going to make education affordable for our millennials and for the people coming behind them is to change how we educate, right? Change how we educate. And here's my idea. I'll just throw it out there for you. You can think about it tonight. And next time we meet, you can tell me, you can shoot holes in it. But here it is. Why do we charge a young person for 4 years of school to get a bachelor's degree? Because we all know the first 2 years are a repeat of high school.
Yep.
So let's get rid of the first 2 years. And if they want a bachelor's, we've already made it affordable because we cut the price in half. They only have to spend money on 2, right?
I like it.
Why don't we encourage more people to take college-level courses in high school so that they can take those college-level courses and apply them to the school, and that's 3 credits they don't have to pay for, right? Why don't we have more vocational schools?
Yeah.
Why don't we have more vocational tracks? Because not everybody wants to go to college. I got my middle boy, Zachary, who is salt of the earth, wants to do everything with his hands, get outside, sweat, working hard, right? He doesn't want to sit in the classroom, but he's got no choice because that's the choice he's given, right? So let's give people better choices. Let's cut that education process in half and make a master's degree 3 years and 2 years. So if you want to stay to get your master's, fine. If you don't, you get out with a bachelor's, you're focused, we get people in the workforce faster, right? And they spend less money on their education, right? Why don't we do something like that? And then if they want to stay 3 years for a master's degree, they stay 3 years. Or if their master's is 4 years, depending, and in 4 years they're out with a bachelor's, a master's, and they're on their way, right? And we don't have kids staying in school building up debt for years and years and years and years, paying educators and paying the system the money so that they can be rich, right? And oh, by the way, what do professional athletes do, particularly football players? They leave college in the 3rd year because they can't afford to play ball that 4th year and get hurt. And they're most marketable at year 3. So they leave at year 3 with a bachelor's and a 3-year master's, and now they don't have to worry about going back and getting it when they become a professional athlete. We have a higher educated workforce, we have higher educated people, and it's less expensive, right? Why don't we do that, right? Why do we make people take senseless courses all the time? But I tell you what, you talk about liberal. You've been on universities, you know what I'm talking about. They don't want this because they think it's going to cut into their wealth, their pay, right?
The cartel.
The cartel, right. Big problem, big problem.
Done. Thank
Right?
you.
Are we done? No, yes, sir.
One more question.
I am sorry, but you've got to relate to them. You've got to get in front of them. I'm going to be going on campuses and of universities and colleges all over this state to make my
You
case.
need to go to Portsmouth and run the block.
I'm going to go to Portsmouth and run the block. I will do that. Thank you.
Take that last one.
Yes, sir.
Right,
Sure.
so Don, I apologize, I was running a little late today.
That's okay.
And the question I'm about to ask is the reason why is, I heard you mention the opioid crisis.
Yeah.
The reason I'm late is my sister-in-law just overdosed. So She's still, thank you, she's still with us. She's in the hospital right now, and, but my question related to that, all these drugs coming over our southern border, my question would be, do you support the wall? If so, why? And if not, why?
I support the wall. It's a necessary part of our border security. So is technology on the wall, so is more infrastructure on the border, excuse me, so is more technology on the border, so is more infrastructure on the border, more police on the border, and an ability to take care of the challenges that we have with the demographics of people wanting to come across the border, because they're much different now than they were. President Trump isn't getting any help on this at all. None. Zero. Zippo. And he needs help. And he needs people in there that are going to push this. That know, I have helped countries all over the world with border security, with immigration policies, with asylum policies, with visa. I have tried to get Americans out, help through the State Department, through the ambassador, as a military representative for the AFRICOM commander, the U.S. AFRICOM. In Africa, trying to get U.S. citizens that went into a country illegal, trying to get them out so that they can get back into U.S. custody. Countries don't like weak borders. They don't like weak immigration. It endangers their citizens, right? And neither should we. I'm not anti-immigrant. My goodness. Oh, they left. I'm sorry they had to leave. But I heard the whole immigrant story, right? He's got great immigrants. I am all for immigrants. We're all from immigrant families, for crying out loud. But we had a process, and the process worked. And they came here for a completely different reason. They came here to work hard. They came here to contribute, not for freebies. And that's what we got. We need complete rehaul of our border security. We need to do the things that President Trump wants and more. We need to do things in immigration that President Trump wants and more. Same thing with our asylum laws, and same thing for our visa. We just had a tragic accident in Randolph, New Hampshire, because of a breakdown of that whole system, right? Did you hear Senator Shaheen at all about that? No. Governor Sununu and myself, both of us. I went on Fox News about it and said, hey, listen, if you commit a crime in this country and you're a non-resident, you need to go home. You don't stay here. You pay for whatever it is you did here, and then you get on the first thing smoking back to wherever it is you came from. You don't get allowed to drive around and commit crimes in 6 states and then end up, you know what I mean? No way. I would be hard on that. 95% of the crap coming in this country, drugs that your, was it sister-in-law? Sister-in-law is getting, comes from that border. We need to stop that. We need to stop it. And we're going to stop it because it's going to be a priority of mine. And we're going to put the money that President Trump has given us and the money that's been allocated from bills for the opioid crisis to prevention and recovery. And none of this mamby-pamby stuff in between about giving people free needles and free this and free that and taking them off one drug and putting them on another drug and then throwing them in the welfare system. That must stop. We have to help people in recover. And then we need to use the people that are in recovery that have to be able to help people that want to recover. It only makes sense. But we're not doing any of that. We're not doing the prevention, and we're not doing the recovery right. What we're doing is we got a guy at one end of the river, and he's throwing people in. And then we got people at the other end of the river pulling people out, and they miss people, right? And so we're concentrating all our efforts on pulling them out when no one's doing anything about the guy throwing them in. You see what I mean? It's a balance on both ends, and we're not doing it.
Thank you. One thing, General, I need you to promise, and I know you keep promises.
I do.
If you win, you're coming back here.
I want to come back here again even before I win.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Croc TV.